Now I'm about to start with the next topic. We have already covered the basics of it. I'm about to start the next topic, which is your security controls. Security controls are very important. Whole security revolves around security controls only. So, whole of the security, these are conceptual things first. Then we will, over the period of time, we will have a look at how these controls are implemented and we will look at some controls in detail. So suppose you go to a doctor, okay? You go to a doctor and doc you just like if you have a headache. Headache is a situation that you're facing. Then doctor will give you a pill. So that pill is what? A control or countermeasures. Security controls are the measure taken to safeguard an information system from attacks against confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information system. Security controls are selected and applied based on risk assessment of the information system. The risk assessment means it's not like that, just like when you go to a doctor, doctor will understand, he will not be like behaving like that, a standard medicines which he give it to everyone. No, it doesn't works like that. He will ask you to provide you his to explain you explain him your problem, and then based on that problem and your symptoms, he will give you a pill, he will give you a medicine. So that is what controls are. So controls are applied on the basis of risk the organization have. Let's take an example. If there is a normal training organization, okay, like I do work with Protecte Academy, Simply Learn. So I am a trainer. Okay. So for logging into their application, there is no need for two-factor authentication. Just because their content are simple educational content, nothing big that it will cause a large financial harm to them. No. So that's the reason. In order to log in onto a Simply Learn or a Protecte, I just need a username and a password, and my job is done. Correct? At the same time, when I logged into my company website application, company system through which I am managing the customer devices. So there we have two-factor authentication enabled because that is more risky. Like for example, when you are logging into a banking website, okay, then these days all banking websites, mostly all, they require you, just like I have a Yes Bank, Standard Chartered, definitely they have included two-factor authentication in it. But at the same time, if you're logging into Protective website, like you are logging it for this for course, you simply need username and password. Why? Because there the risk is more, here the risk is less. Even if someone take control over your session, what maximum he can do? He can listen to the recordings of the courses, that's all. So that is why controls or countermeasures are applied based on the risk the organization has. There are different categories of a control. Okay, we will cover that in detail. Controls based on implementation, that how they are implemented, physical control, technical control, administrative controls. Then control based on functionality, deterrent, preventive, detective, corrective, recovery, and compensatory. I will cover all that, don't worry. So controls are put into place to reduce the risk organization faces. They are used to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your assets. So first category of control is how they are implemented: administrative, technical, and physical. So what is administrative controls? You all are working, I would say. Your organization has policies in place in the organization. No matter you're not from, I do understand you're not from security, but you're a working professional. So you have security policies in your organization, the disciplinary policies, correct? Disciplinary actions, standards, the procedures defined to do a job. Trainings are being taken, trainings are in place, security awareness trainings. That's all comes under your administrative control. Like, for example, Patty, just take an example. Suppose you are working in a payroll department. Okay, just take an example. You're working in a payroll department. You can, or a procurement department. So you can get any company registered. You have a power to get a company registered. Suppose you are the one. So normally in a payroll department, normally in a procurement department, the person who is registering the company for the first time or first process is not allowed to vet that company, because what he can do the same thing. Just like another example. Sorry. Suppose you go to theater to watch a movie. The person who is selling the ticket is not the one who is checking the ticket. Correct? Otherwise, you may, okay, you may not, you take some extra money from your friend or relative, and you are the seller and a checker both. Then you may take money from anyone and you let him by checking it, not checking it properly. So this is what a segregation of duties. So segregation of duties, job rotations, policies, procedures you have in the organizations. Then you have, okay, security awareness trainings conducted at the regular interval. That all comes under administrative control. Okay. We will cover that in detail. So policies, every organization have policies, security policies, standards, guidelines. Like these are the things like you have password guideline. The password should be of 8 to 10 characters. Do's and don'ts available in the organization at the desk. Okay, that's all comes under administrative control. So we'll cover these controls in detail. Don't worry. Then we have technical controls. Technical controls are also called as the logical controls, which are implemented as systems. Firewall. Firewall is a device or a group of devices which manages access between two or more networks. Like, for example, the traffic, you are part of internal network. A traffic, you need to access something on an outside network. The firewall have a rule in place which will be checked before you are allowed to access anything on outside. Firewall, intrusion prevention system, intrusion prevention system, intrusion detection system. Prevention and detection both are monitoring tool. Detection means it can only detect if something wrong is happening and let an administrator take an action on its own. It's like a Pomeranian dog which can bark and let you know something wrong is happening, take action on your own. IPS is like a Doberman or a Rottweiler which not only bark but can also stop that person from entering. So IPS, IDS, firewalls, encryption, we have covered up a little bit of it. So that all comes under your technical controls. Antiviruses that you have. Okay, if you are working in your system, some organizations have their laptop encrypted, so that laptop hard disk encrypted. Access control, the username and password that you enter on your system so that you can log in, so that no unauthorized person can log in. That all comes under your technical controls. We will be covering these controls in detail, don't worry. Then we have physical controls. Administrative control, we will do it today only. Then we have physical controls. Physical controls are the controls which is used to protect your physical resources. Locks, locks. fences, lighting, doors, CCTV camera, fire extinguishers, okay, fire extinguishers, fire detectors, that all comes under your even physical access control, anti-static carpets, that all comes under your physical control. Any questions till now?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we have controls based on functionality: preventive, deterrent, detective, corrective, compensatory, and recovery. Preventive, as the name says, it can prevent something bad, if it can prevent an attack from happening. Firewall, intrusion prevention system, security guards, locks, walls, fences that can prevent an attack and reduces the likelihood of a successful attack. That is preventive. Then we have detective, which can detect if something wrong is happening. It is intended to discover or detect unwanted or unauthorized activity. Intrusion detection system, IDS, is basically a detective tool. So look, it has, then the question comes to your mind, how it detect. It has a database of signatures. Signatures are the rules or patterns of previous attacks or past attacks and incident. It's like police have the database of criminals. Similarly, it has database of attacks, and it matches against, it try to match against that attacks and definitions. If there's a match, it takes an action. Then you have CCTV cameras, SIM tool. SIM is security information and event management tool. How it works, we will cover that later on. SIM is like, suppose your organization have a lot of devices, a lot of systems. All these devices, systems, application, they generate logs. It is not, these logs needs to be monitored, and logs needs to be continuously monitored, and you should take action. Logged and monitored both, and it is not possible for us to monitor these logs continuously manually. So you have a device which is configured to take or ingest log from these devices, and it not only ingests the logs, but it also correlate the logs, and if it finds anything anomalous, it will give you an alert. So CCTV, SIM tool, loggings, IDS, they are all kind of a detective control. Okay. Another example of detective control is job rotation in democracies. Okay. Job rotation in democracies, after every, I don't know about Australia, India every 5 years, US every 4 years, elections are organized. What do you think? Why these elections are organized? So that no one incumbent should be allowed to work in his position for long. You have seen in the organizations or even in dictatorships where no regime change happens, and people have become careless, or I would say ruthless. Okay, without any fear they do things because they know that no one can do anything to them. But in democracies, people are afraid, or even in government jobs, people are being transferred after every 2 to 3 years. So that this is a detective control, because once a person is transferred, if he is involved in any fraudulent activities or malicious practices, then other person can detect his activities. So that is, job rotation is also a mandatory, is also a detective control. Were you aware of this earlier? No, I don't think so. So that's a reason it is always, okay, it's always all big people in positions and in corporate People working in procurement and all, they are being transferred after some time. So that if they're involved in wrongdoing, the other person can detect it. Deterrent. In India, I'm not aware, in India, if you see a policeman standing, a traffic man standing, you automatically deters. Because in India, I've seen that people are not very traffic rule savvy. They don't respect a traffic rule. But around 2 or 3 years ago, government of India have massively increased the punishments, not punishment, the penalties, fines for the traffic rule, okay, violations. So that had acted as a deterrence because I know that if I if I cross the traffic light, okay, then I have to pay a fine of 2,000 rupees. That act as a deterrence. I know organizations have a disciplinary policy in place. If I do something wrong, I will face a disciplinary action. I know I have signed an NDA. Okay. I know I have signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, regarding the regarding the disclosure of confidential information to outside entities. So I will deter from disclosing the information. So these are all which can deter a person from doing something wrong. It's a deterrent control. Login banners, you know, login banners, you know the history behind it. When you log in, you're all working professional. Definitely, you would have been given a laptop to work upon. And when you're logging into a laptop, you would have seen a login banner, correct? So what does login banner says? This this is the property of so and so company. Okay. And please, if you're not an authorized user, please don't log in, log off, move out. But it is to deter a person that he may face actions. But login banners were not like this before, were not like this previously. This case was there was an incident or not incident case which was brought into a court of law in US. Some person, some hacker has been brought into court of law that he had access the resources on a laptop in an unauthorized manner. He said in his in a support of his argument, he gives this argument in support of his case that looks on his laptop and a system, there was a login banner which was welcoming me. Welcome to the property of this. So earlier days, the login banners was not meant for warning or deterrence. It was people casually set it up with anything which they want. But since then, it has changed. So anything which can deter an action, that's a deterrent control. Always remember, one control can exhibit different functionality. Like for example, guard is a security physical control. But if secure, it's mainly a physical preventive control. But if I see a guard and decided not to go ahead, in that case, guard is a deterrent control. So one control can exhibit different functionality depending on situation and context it is in. Then we have corrective control. When something wrong has happened, like for example, I'm not Betsy, definitely you will be a mother. I'm just like I have daughters. Okay, if she's done something wrong, I punished her. Okay, like by cutting down their pocket money or something like that, so that they don't do that mistake again. So corrective control is taking actions to correct if something wrong has happened. Like for example, if a fire is detected, It's an incident. You use fire extinguishers to douse a fire. Corrective control. Another example. A security vulnerability is detected and you're patching your system to correct that vulnerability, fix that vulnerability. That is again a corrective control. Something wrong has happened, incident was detected. Now you are invoking incident management to take care of that. That is again a corrective control. Okay, taking actions to correct the problem that has been arise because of anything. Then recovery. Something wrong has happened and you're taking actions to bring it back to the regular operations. Like for example, backups. Like for example, there is a outage and now data is lost. You are using backups to retrieve or to bring it back to the normal operation. You're using disaster recovery plans. So this is about your types of controls. There's another one which we call as a compensatory. Compensatory control is used in those cases when your primary control is difficult to implement or not functioning properly. Let's take an example. Suppose you have a data center. Okay. In data center, you have access control, physical access control installed, which means that to control the access of entry, to control the entry of people into the data center, and to keep a record of who entered the data center at what time and for how much time he has stayed in a data center. This is to ensure reputation, non-reputation. Because if something goes wrong, then you can trace the activity back to the individual. Suppose access card reader is not working. Okay, access card reader is not working. So it's not, and it is under maintenance phase. So you cannot stop an entry and exit of people into the data center just because of that. So here you can have a compulsory control. In case of security guard, you will make that security guard sit with a register in hand, taking a note of taking a note of people entering and exiting the data center and their timestamp. Another example, suppose there is a requirement, you have a CCTV camera. Okay, you have an unmanned or unmanned facility where you have a CCTV camera. And you think, and there is a need of dog in that, not unmanned dog. Yeah, there is a need of dog. In the night, that facility remain unmanned. But yes, in the daytime, people work. So there is a need of a dog also. But there are few people employed who works in that facility. They are allergic to dog. So you cannot have dog as a control. Dog is security. Dog is also a control. You cannot have dog as a control. So what you have taken, what compulsory measures you have taken, you can take. You can buy a security alarm. You can buy a system which can which has an alarm of a barking of a dog. So you see, it's like a compulsory control.